3, 2, 1. Short announcement, this is practical announcement. It has been decided that since there's at least 3 people that need an early run to the airport Tuesday morning, 6:30 a.m. depart, that our minibus is going to the airport 6:30 a.m. Tuesday. Anybody else that would like an early way out, that there is now an option. Otherwise, we'll be taking people the local bus here, bus train to Perpignan, and then also that minibus and cars will be leaving here at 11:15 a.m. Tuesday morning, which is final departure. At 11:15 Tuesday morning, we don't have this place anymore, just so you know. But it's been so wonderful. This is just the practicalities. Thank you.
Dan, you want to say that tonight I'm going to Barcelona, if anyone...
Oh, yes, so if anybody needs a ride toward Barcelona, our hero, Carlos, is...
Straight downtown. In case somebody is not attending tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Remember, so, and,
No, tonight.
yeah, that, the practicalities, so remember Tuesday morning, for example, we'll be doing demonstrations, flame in mind, piezo fire, verify, and plasma fire, demos. On Tuesday morning, flexible open, and of course you guys, Monday is your play day tomorrow. You're free, you go play in the market, take the bus. It's all kinds of adventures are possible. And then we are having lunch here, but maybe let us know if you're not coming. And then tomorrow, Monday afternoon, starting at 2, is French lectures, but the first 2 are in English, and of course you're invited. And so that's flexible, and there'll be still some demos going on. So it's basically a free day to do anything you want to do with it. And then tonight we're having a climax party for the English speakers. Of course you're there. And tomorrow night we're having a climax party for English and French speakers, and they're both parties. Oh, cool.
What time would that be tomorrow? Is that 7 o'clock?
Yeah, 7 to 7:15 ish. Yeah, that's a big pile. One more announcement. Go
Just
ahead.
to be clear, Dad, the playing with the toys, is that on Tuesday morning?
No, Monday.
Monday
So that's
morning.
on Monday
It's
morning
Monday.
as well?
Correction,
Yeah.
Monday morning.
Tuesday morning is only departure. Breakfast and
You
departure.
said Tuesday.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a correction, thank you.
Thank you.
And tomorrow morning, we added something to the program. So there will be lectures here, English and French, and in addition to that, Ralph would like to suggest a detailed geomancy practicing exercise around 2 hours, if anyone is interested, outside
Outdoors.
at 10 a.m. in the morning, while there are also ongoing lectures. So if you are interested, around 2 hours or 2.5 hours maybe. So that's also scheduled for tomorrow morning.
Great. Yeah, actually, we won't be lectures in here, there'll be demos, yes. But it's wonderful that you have a hands-on opportunity for Dr. Rao, our geometric hero. Okay, so this episode of our Fractal View Conference, Sacred Geometry and Science and Alchemy of Consciousness, we are now in the final afternoon, and this episode is about the science and the practice of lucid dreaming. That's what this is about. And many of you have seen some of our material before. We started the wonderful international project, luciddreamteam.com. And so I'm going to start for a few minutes about the science. And then since I'm not really so good at the practice, I'm working on it. But actually Anna is quite talented. I think. Many shaman grandparents are somewhere in Poland or something. Ancestors on the ley lines, something, but she has the skill, obviously. And so on the science side, just to say, remember the very old story that if you're in a dream and you want to wake up inside a dream, what do you do?
Look at your hands.
Good, exactly. So why, if you're a scientist and you ask, what's the science behind the fact that looking at your hand inside a dream helps you wake up in the dream? What's the science?
Self-reflection, reflexology.
That's right, yes,
Soul.
yes, exactly, the connection, yes. And the kind of connection we're talking about, for example, the area on the homunculus, the map of the body on the brain, the little man, the area devoted to the hand is biggest. So the amount of wiring between your hand and your brain is huge. So the point is that by looking at your hand, you start literally a do loop. And that do loop has the function, as you focus, and I mean focus, on that hand, the Do Loop tightens. This happens to be my bumper sticker because my initials are DEW. The plot has thickened. I mean, the Do Loop has tightened. No. But anyway, so yeah, sorry about my jokes. By the way, the jokes are absolutely untranslatable into French. So
But they're free, right?
I can't do this tomorrow. No jokes in French. It never works. So anyway, so as the Do Loop tightens, when the tightening of that loop is a compression phenomena, that's the point. So that's a tension loop that as that loop in a spiral tightens, it causes density, charge density, plasma density. And that squeezing, that implosion, that density is the specific introduction to the physics, and I do mean the physics of lucid dreaming. So, we formed a hypothesis that after many, especially Myra in Greece, dramatically reported Therapy was a lucid dreaming trigger. Repeatedly, he had lucid dreaming triggers with Therapy. She's a very talented lady as well. But then we researched this, just as we founded luciddreamteam.com, and we found that the university studies on which frequencies trigger lucid dreaming are very close to Planck fire. Hello? The frequency cascade that causes implosion, charge collapse, and thus densification. So that led us then to postulate that obviously the Therapy is creating coherent longitudinal, obviously. And also with the children who began to see without their eyes, by making those same frequencies in their brain waves, the same Planck fire Schumann cascade, which is the brainwave alpha to gamma, as Iris reported, triggering children being able to see without their eyes. And the cool part is the Western parents start freaking out because the kids are seeing their dead grandmothers. Oh my, the parents couldn't handle it. But in the East, in Japan, they don't have a problem with that. They expect the dead grandmothers to be hanging around. It's okay. So, but the point is, this introduced us to the physics of clairvoyance. And what I'm saying here is what I call coherent longitudinal interferometry. When the body emits something coherent in the longitudinal EMF array, that is the physics, the electromagnetics of lucid dreaming, clairvoyance, remote viewing, and actually, we now know by measurement, teleportation, actually, in the case of Jean-Charles Moyen. So in every case, what happens is you implode into the array and you propagate in the array. And as Jodie Foster could have told you very well after the movie Contact, the difference between interstellar transport through a wormhole and a lucid dream, the movie leaves you confused. Was that a lucid dream or was that interstellar transport? Oh, it was both. And by the way, how did they do it? They got inside of a dodecahedron. Oh, they imploded. So the point is, I strongly believe that the physics of the distribution of charge of a coherent longitudinal interferometry array, another word for scalar torsional, is the physics behind lucid dreaming. Basically, what this means in practice is, if your kids are doing Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and electrosmog all day, their aura will not be able to compress. They won't radiate this coherent stuff, the Ba from the Ka, the Kesjan body, the rainbow light body, and therefore they won't lucid dream. And not only that, but we feel very sure that the ability to lucid dream is a huge predictor of who will take memory through death. Certainly those who can remote view, teleport, and even in the case of the dozens of medical surgeons documented who have left their bodies and reported in detail where they were when they were outside their body, all of this, I believe, predicts longitudinal interferometry, the nodes of the array, as the mechanism of that ability to take your consciousness outside your body. So ask the other people teaching physics of consciousness what consciousness is when you're outside your body. We happen to know. It's a plasma vortex, just like ball lightning, which responds so well to telepathy, famously. So anyway, this was my enthusiasm that I really felt we had begun to seriously understand lucid dreaming. What does this predict? Practically, it means, again, if you have access to the node of sacred space in a longitudinal array where the magnetic lines cross, you can do it better. It's also the place where therapy and labyrinths and cathedrals and telepathy works better, because there's compression there, and the longitudinal node enables that DNA radio. So all of this is to say that we're forming a fairly coherent electrical engineering hypothesis of the serious physics of lucid dreaming, remote viewing, astral travel. And the remote viewers have gotten onto this now. Our partner, Tony Rodriguez, one of the most famous SSP experiencers, we've made a dozen videos now, we're cooking on this. He realized that the dolmen, the Jed towers, the obelisks, were a major node for remote viewers. And then later he saw that there's a very fixed distance between the longitudinal node of the obelisk and the water, which is getting charged from the longitudinal by the obelisk. And that fixed distance was the longitudinal array, which, by the way, is making remote viewing work better. So basically what you do is, as we discussed, you inhabit an array now. It's called your synapses. If you can leap from there into a bigger array, you get immortal. It ain't complicated. But how you leap from there into a bigger array actually means that first, the plasma vortex inside your head, the tornado you call your consciousness, it's literally a wormhole, has to get very centripetal and very coherent in order to propagate then outside your body coherently. And that's this densification process, which obviously is very much related to access to bliss. So your electrical hygiene, your astral hygiene, your diet hygiene, you know. Are you thinking shareable thoughts all day? Every time you do, your hair should stand up because you just imploded. That's called eureka. So the discipline to think only shareable thoughts, to think only pure principle, therein lies the challenge. Anywho, so it seems like maybe by talking fast, I can talk about the principles, but can I do it? I can make 5 harmonics in golden ratio in my EEG almost replicably. However, I don't climb up to that critical gamma. So my clairvoyance is poor, my clairaudience is good. And so, you know, my skill at lucid dreaming is limited, and so we need someone with more skill to talk about the next step. I just want to say one last thing, that if you ask yourself the question, if you are a vortex tornado of living plasma when you exit your body, what is the physics of how you then steer? How would you navigate? Okay, so you're literally a plasma vortex. That's what you are. You can be inside your body or out. But when you're outside your body, you're just a plasma vortex. You know the old story from 9 Faces of Christ. The first time he went, he only took one organ of perception as lucid dreaming. But then his yearning for his lover was so great that the next time he lucid dreamed, he took 2 organs of perception with him into the dream. He dreamed in color, for example. So every time you get more coherent, you take more organs of perception with you. Well, what is the navigator? Obviously, it's the yearning. We know that the Navy soldiers who traveled in time at Montauk ended up at the bar room they were dreaming of going to the next weekend. It's a true story, actually. So the yearning steered them to the bar. It worked, actually. So the point is, the yearning is the navigator. Now, how would you explain that electrically? Electrically, you know that the angle of the spiral on the torus shadow that we call Hebrew and Sanskrit is a unique plasma directional vector only. In other words, it's simply a way to steer. So not only if you visualize the Hebrew letter accurately enough to fill your optical cortex, you can make a golem because you're blowing smoke rings at the right tilt. But also, this is the way you cool your jets. I mean, steer your jets. I mean, this is literally a navigation physics. That the non-redundant fact that every spiral on the donut, each shadow of that spiral is not duplicated in any shadow. So if you see a spiral on a torus, we call Hebrew and Sanskrit, the shadow that you're seeing, called Hebrew and Sanskrit, tells you specifically, non-redundantly, what direction your jet has been steered. which is obviously an ancient, this is actually the Siakar, it's a long story, it's a Draco Uru, Ebi Uru, long story. Anywho, point being that how you steer inside the dream, the psychology is the yearning. The physics is literally an alphabet of symmetry. So steering in the dream is kind of the next thing to learn. Now, I think that when Anna is teaching the lucid dreaming, she's evolved her own language about much of this. And I think we'd like to hear from you now.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Can everybody hear me well? Yeah? All good? Okay, thank you. Because I cannot hear myself very well. As Dan said, I am lucky enough to be able to lucid dream. It's scalability that developed throughout time. It wasn't always there, but I discovered that when I exposed myself to Dan's work and to specific geometries, that kind of helped me. It was like a facilitator to dream more and be aware of things even more, like being aware of a broader perspective. Funnily enough, a few days before coming here, I had a dream, and in that dream, there was a very interesting geometry with like tornadoes, vortexes. And in that dream, I was like, oh my God, I have to include that in the presentation. This is it, like this is wonderful. And of course, I didn't wake up and I forgot what that was, so not very successful.
But Vortex, yeah.
Yes, yes. So yes, when you think about the word lucidity, like what does it mean to be lucid? So when I look at it, it means like luminosity, clarity. So for me, I imagine a dark room in which you shed a light on a specific object or a place, and that, in that way, you see very clearly what that object is, the shape, the color, the position of it. So for me, being lucid on many different levels, it means clarity, being able to see without doubt what specific things are. Why dreaming is important? Some people think that dreaming is just dreaming, but for me, dreaming is a way of learning things about myself. It's a discovery. Because I discovered that dreams were telling me things that I wasn't aware of. They were either nightmares, wonderful dreams, or lucid dreams that were sending me messages. And that was affecting my life here, my awake state. And the same, the way what I was experiencing here was being translated into my dreams. So there is a huge kind of correlation between this state and the state of being asleep. For a lot of people, lucid dreaming, I think there is a slight misconception of what lucid dreaming is, because people believe that lucid dreaming is only when you wake, like when you realize in your dream that you're dreaming. And that's one part of it. Some people are able to control it, although recently I've, in a book, can't remember the author, but he mentioned that lucid dreaming is not about control, it's about navigation. So imagine that you're a captain on a boat sailing an ocean. You cannot control the ocean. What you can only do is to navigate your boat, right? So it's the same with lucid dreaming. When you're having a dream and you wake up in the dream, or you realize that you're in a dream, just let yourself flow. Let yourself go. Don't try to control it like, oh, now I have to move left, right, I don't know, I need to move to a specific place. If you can do it, do it. But I believe it's more like letting yourself go and see what the dream is going to show you, what it's going to bring you. So I believe that the importance of dreaming, actually, not necessarily lucid dreaming, but dreaming. For Carl Jung, according to him, dreaming, like the dream state and the dreams were more important to this reality, this life. He believed that actually this is the dream state. And when we are dreaming, actually this is what reality is. This is what really counts. As I said, for me, dreams are messages to myself about myself. It's self-discovery. A lot of people who suffer from PTSD, what they do is they are trained to lucid dream. Because when you think about it, very often we have recurring nightmares. Right? There are dreams that keep coming to us. There is a message. And a lot of people, especially soldiers, when they lucid dream, they are able to overcome their trauma by lucid dreaming. So I'll just give a very, very short example connected with me. I had since childhood this really wonderful nightmare of a lion always chasing me. It was always the same setting, the same place, the same kind of a lion, and the same behavior of people. Either people were ignoring the lion or they were like not around, and I was the only one who was just aware of the lion chasing me. And it took me 15, 20 years kind of to realize what that was. And when I say a nightmare, I would always wake up after that nightmare. It was twice a month usually. I would wake up and it kind of affected my emotions for the next couple of days. It was so powerful, it was so terrifying at the same time. And then at some point when I started looking into it and trying to understand what it symbolizes, what it means to me, what can I learn from it, one night I was again running away. Everybody is aware of the lion, but they are not reacting to it. It's just me. And then I was like, no, I cannot continue. It's enough. So I stopped. I managed to stop myself, turn around, look at the lion, and be like, no, enough. Like, what do you want? What is it that you're trying to tell me? Enough. I didn't get the answer then because I woke up. But that was the first time when I faced the lion, when I faced it, and then I wasn't afraid anymore. And that kind of translated into my behavior in an awake state. I discovered that I am brave, actually. I was trying to hide my bravery a lot, and the lion was a symbol of bravery, who I am. And then I didn't understand it until somebody this summer told me something really beautiful, very intimate, and that just clicked. It just clicked to me that, I am the lion, and I should not run away from it. I should be the lion, and I should kind of embrace it.
Oh, there's that wonderful book, Secret Places of the Lion, which was a turning point in my spiritual path. Did the whole incarnation from Tutankhamun to Jesus. But anyway, the point was, the lion serves you at the Stargate by smelling for fear. Because if you have fear, you cannot do compression.
Yeah, yeah. So there are different ways that some people achieve. I discovered, as I said before, that listening to Dan, exposing myself to specific geometries, that kind of enhanced lucidity in my dreams. The funny thing is, people suggested at the very beginning many years ago, keep a diary. And I would very much laugh at that idea. I was like, no, this is such a silly idea. And then I was like, okay, let's just try, cannot hurt. So I started writing one dream and then another. And then there was like, as if I opened the door and there was a flood of dreams coming. Because you started paying attention to specific things, and that allows for that door to be open, and you welcome the dreams, you welcome the messages coming. So yes, the first thing I would suggest is to keep a diary. Sometimes people wake up and then they are too lazy, I would say, to write it down or record it. What I do, because I'm one of those people, I just kind of try to stay awake and I repeat, okay, so I saw this person said that, and I repeat it a couple of times, then I fall back asleep and I remember it in the morning. One of the techniques. Some people set an intention before going to bed. Today I'm going to lucid dream. Today I am going to lucid dream. So never done. I mean, I did try that. It works, it doesn't work, depends on the person. Just a way to try. You might want to try that. This is very interesting. Like sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night and there's a dream, be it like a nightmare or pleasant dream, I try to go back to sleep, kind of recalling the last scenes of the dream, and then slowly, while falling asleep, directing the dream. And then when you fall asleep, sometimes, at least in my case, you're able then to lucid dream. So it's a way of kind of forcing a lucid dream in a way, like kind of allowing for the lucid dream to happen.
I missed the middle of that.
So I wake up, right? Yeah. So I wake up, okay, let's say there was a turtle who was eating my toes, as random as that, right? And it evokes specific emotions in me. So I woke up and I was, oh goodness, that was not very pleasant, right? But the emotion stays with you. So what you can do, you can slowly go back, you recall what color the turtle was, where were you, and then slowly imagine, let's say, that you take the turtle, you look at a turtle and you ask a question, or you say, look at it from different perspective, you pay attention. So you're slowly, while falling asleep, you're slowly trying to direct the dream until you fall asleep, and then the dream takes
So you
over.
kind of objectify, in a way, make dense that turtle.
Yeah, because it's a way of, again, kind of taking control, but not taking control, it's directing it. And it's a way of navigating and kind of allowing yourself to lucid dream. Sometimes, as I said, it works, it depends on the person. Different people have different techniques. For me, some techniques work, for some, no, not really.
It's kind of a loop in your attention, too.
Yes, yes, yes. Some people, what people like to do is create fictional scenarios while they're awake. So let's say I would imagine that I live in Algeria, I have this house, and in my garden there's grass, green grass, and then there's snow. And let's say there's a dinosaur. So you pay attention to all the details, and then you start asking questions. But wait a second, like we are in Algeria, it's very hot, and then why is there green grass and snow? So you start asking questions. Because what happens to me when I lucid dream is there are different levels to lucid dreaming. For me, the most common one is when I ask questions. So let's say something is unraveling, and I'm like, but that doesn't make sense. Why is that happening? Why did that person say that things to me? This is also considered a lucid dream. It doesn't have to mean that, you know, you're just awake and you're like, oh, this is a dream, wonderful, let me just direct it. No, even if you're questioning things, even if you remember them, something is unusual. For me, I consider this a lucid dream because you remember there's a message to it. So yes, by creating fictional scenarios in your head, you train yourself later to pay attention to the surrounding in your dream and then ask questions. And this is how you can slowly develop the ability to lucid dream. Or you can set a signal. For example, looking at the hands. I had a conversation with William, cannot see William here, but I think he mentioned that he, for him, it was like a black mark on his hand or something like that, that he would look at his hand, and if he didn't have it in the dream, it meant that he was lucid dreaming. Yes, so different people have different kind of signals that they train themselves to test whether they're awake or in a dream state.
Similar to testing if you're dead, perhaps. I see dead people.
Won't try this yet.
Oh yeah, the mirror. Yes, exactly.
No, they're dead.
Yeah. So the interesting part for me is that you're very much aware of it, but in the dream state, which happens in REM, which is part of delta, it's 25%. When they measure the brain is very much active, as if we were awake. It's like your body's paralyzed, but your brain is constantly working. And what is interesting is that a lot of people sometimes wake up after a long night of dreams being very tired. And the reason why it happens is that because your brain is constantly active, of course you will wake up tired. So it's very normal to feel tired when you had a lot of dreams, because the brain is very electrical and it's constantly working there. So what I spoke about was the dream state, the dreaming. Now, there is another level that I would like to mention, which is a hypnagogic state. And it's the state between being awake and falling asleep. So for me, I understand it as the theta waves, which is between 4 and 8 hertz. This is the state where it gets denser. That's how I can explain. For me, it's just the field gets denser and it gets slower. And very often, I'm sure when you do meditations, then you start seeing different images. So for me, it was first faces, different colors. And then what I started doing is I started looking at different geometrical objects. And for example, I would look at Star Mother Kit, which is very complex still for me to kind of recreate it. But I would look at, let's say, Torus, right? And I would try to follow the spiral, okay? So I would just observe it with my eyes, and then I would close my eyes, and I would try to recreate the movement and the spiral in my head. well, in my mind's visions, right? And I would look at Dan's different visuals in his book. So let's say face conjugation, right? So I would look at it and then close my eyes and then play with it. Different colors. Each, like let's say Vortex would have a different color. They would spin, they would move. I would suggest starting with the chair first, objects that you're familiar with, looking at it, closing your eyes, recreating it, different colors, spinning it, moving it, and then moving to more complex things. And what I noticed that once I started paying attention to geometrical shapes, models, the dreams started to be richer, deeper in a way. They had more message, more density, and there was more meaning to it, personally. Yes, very interestingly, Dali would very often get himself to that state, and that would inspire him to later paint, and especially with Benjamin Franklin. That was a very interesting story that I've learned, that whenever he had a problem that he couldn't solve or find a solution to a specific situation, he would stress himself, but then later he would be like, okay, let's just leave it. So he would leave it for some time, then he would sit on his chair and he would relax his body. He would hold a key in his, let's say, right hand, and he would slowly, slowly relax until he would reach the hypnagogic state. In that state, what happens is, and that happens probably to a lot of people, it happened to me, it's like you open up, there's like more lucidity, you have more access to having more clarity. So he would get answers to the questions that he was trying to solve while he was awake, fully conscious and awake. Now the trick is not to fall asleep. So what he would do, he would have a key in his hand, and once the body relaxes, the muscles relax, the key would fall and make a sound, and that would wake him up, and then he would remember. Because I tried that a couple of times, and if I don't kind of wake up myself, or if I don't stand up or move, I forget. And great ideas can come at that specific moment. When you're struggling, when you're dealing with things. I'm an English teacher, and I couldn't come up with a lesson for a student. It's just very difficult to find a topic that she was interested in, and I was really kind of stressed. And then I was like, okay, let me just leave it, I'll figure it out tomorrow. Lay down, relaxed, and then I was like, oh, why don't I do a lesson about that one? As simple as that. It was just the subconscious was there to give me the answer. It's just like you really have more clarity in those specific stages. The next thing is lucid awareness. This is what I call it. So for me, it's about being awake, like right now, but changing your brain waves. And I believe I go to theta, which is this between 4 and 8, when I relax myself, and when I do that, then suddenly there's the implosion that happens, and then again I have access to more information, things make more sense, I understand the world around me better.
They talk about theta as access to the deep unconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So because a lot of somebody said like we sleepwalk throughout our lives, and it's true. We are not aware of specific things. We are just like, okay, work, job, kids, whatever. But there's a broader, there's like a door that when you open it, you start seeing, oh my goodness, there is much more to this. So how do I do it? For me, lucid awareness is achieved through kind of implosion. What does that mean? When I started listening to Dan talking about implosion, it was a very abstract concept because I couldn't practice it, I couldn't experience it bodily. So then once I started doing it and practicing, I finally understood what you were talking about. So it just took me a couple of years, but yes.
You know, it just occurs to me, just to take a minute, we spend so much time in Australia. You know, when you see the Aboriginals sitting there, you think they're sleeping, but if you ask them what they're doing, they say, oh, I'm moving the water vein 100 miles down the road on the song line. And, you know, we studied dowsing for years, and we always said, you know, the beginner dowser, if he needs to move the water vein, he uses a hammer percussion, piezo. But advanced dowser always moves the water vein by talking to it. Now, what does it mean to talk to the water vein? In other words, so if that magnetic line they call dreaming track has been in the family, literally, 100 miles of magnetic line has been a family pet for 100 generations. That song line, they know every turn, every song that bends that line. So eventually, when you're inhabiting the array outside your body, your embedding entanglement with that array gives you leverage to move that array. And so that's called an inner muscle, right? And that's why they call it dreaming track songline, because it's actually embedding that gives you leverage on the array. That's the next step in lucid dreaming, is actually a form of psychokinesis.
So how do I do it? How do I implode? So I use Vortex.
To get dense.
Yes.
Get dense.
Yes. I couldn't understand why Vortex was present since I was 20 maybe. It was always in my dreams. It was in meditations, drawings. It was just the Vortex. And then I started listening to that and understanding more, and then it made sense. What I do is I imagine myself like as if I'm inside a vortex. Like the vortex is spinning around me, and when with my will, if I follow that spin,
The will.
yes, then I go fast and I go, and then this is an implosion. And I go to this very still point, and with that still point, it's this expansion. It goes.
Exactly. Embedding in the array. The compression allows you to get dense enough to embed in the array, and then you can unpack into the array. And then when you become centripetal in the array, called Christos, you have leverage on the array. Yeah, yes.
But there's the stillness. And when Carlos was talking about family constellation, how he kind of creates this energy when he works, and he understands what is missing.
The collective feeling.
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's the same. I do it with the Vortex. I go, there's the stillness, and there's this clarity. I am as lucid as I think I can be. And it's not, I just change the brain waves, but I'm still here. It's not like leaving my body or anything. I can understand, let's say, I can understand much better what is going on around me and what is going around a specific person. So I worked with a family friend, and she was dealing with family issues, issues with her father. And we were just I was trying to kind of help her to see. And I was like, okay, what if she created a vortex around her? And I asked her that. And then I was there, and then I created mine. And then suddenly there was this expansion of the field, and she started saying things that came from the subconscious, and she started saying things that she wasn't aware of. And she was like, oh my goodness, so this is what it's all about. This is why I'm struggling with my dad. And it happened with another person, And it just shows that you can reach more awareness and more clarity about your life using specific geometry. And it's a personal process. It just didn't happen overnight, but it's a process that I am very happy and grateful for. I also did land work. So there is a family farm which is very unhappy. The family farm that I grew up on is a land which is disturbed, and it has been in pain for many generations, and I felt it, and I knew that I can maybe do something and play with it. Why not? So I found a specific place where there was an apple tree that actually dried and died, and I knew that I have to create something there, and the natural thing that came was a vortex. So I listened to nature, the land, to myself, because I felt like if I can help that land to heal, I can help myself to heal myself and my family in a way. So I imagined this huge vortex, and I gave it a spin, and it took some days. And then I understood that the pain had to be released. and the pain was released through the vortex. And there was a huge fountain that came, and then suddenly there was this huge vortex, there was a field of expansion, and then out of that vortex, a heart came out. It was a very strong beating heart, and yeah, it was something very, very nice, and it's still ongoing. But I saw there is a change in my mom, my sisters. They started kind of being closer. They started spending more time on the farm. So maybe I'm looking too much into it, but then I didn't tell them about that. I didn't tell them that I'm doing such a thing, because probably they would look at me and be like, really? Maybe it would be a little bit spooky for them, but I saw the change, and it was a change for better.
Oh. And you could feel that that was very moving. For you.
Yes, but it's still there. I know that the work is not done. Something else needs to
It's a
happen there. Yeah.
Beautiful story. You stirred up the tornado and then you inhabited the center. You stirred the tornado.
Sometimes I can see the future, which is very interesting. So sometimes let's say something happens here right now, and then I know with certainty that I dreamt about it. But I don't remember that dream. It's just I know that I dreamt about it. Or I had a dream with Hakan yesterday when he came and he took out his machine on the first table, and he was checking one gentleman whom I cannot find right now. He was checking, he was like, oh yeah, you have this and that, you will need this and that. And I didn't tell him anything, and we came today in the morning, he was looking for a plug. I'm like, what is it? What are you looking for? He's like, oh, I need a plug to plug in my machine. I'm like, are you going to be checking people? He's like, yes. So I was kind of wrong with the table only. Yes, very interesting. Yes, this is very interesting. That this happened in your house. When I was staying with you, I didn't feel well. I felt kind of as if I was going down with some sort of cold, and I decided to go and rest in bed. And then I felt like, oh goodness, it's flu or something. It's not nice. And it came naturally to me that what if I created a field, a healthy negatropic field with my hands? So I imagine that I have the vortex coming out of my hands, and I started pulsating it very, very gently. And that imploded, and there was this, and then the field expanded. And as unbelievable as it may sound, I just felt normal, as if that, whatever that was, just left. It was that pulsation. There was this rhythm that it had to be. So all those machines and applications are wonderful, but I personally believe that we can do it ourselves. We can help ourselves. Not always those machines are wonderful and they can aid us, but I believe that, we can try doing it ourselves. What I also discovered is that when I have headaches, I read in your book, which it was so absurd at the beginning, that when you have pain, you don't run away from the pain, you focus on it. So I was like, oh, let me just try it.
That's Scorpio. We don't apologize for sting. We enjoy it.
So yes, I did focus, and then suddenly, it's like with the tornado, you go inside, and that pain, at the beginning it felt as if it was bigger than me, but actually when I entered it, I understood, no, I am bigger than the pain, and it's nothing. And then it kind of dissolved. You have to be in the right kind of a mindset and vibration to do it. I try, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I know it can. So.
Haven't got time for the pain. Time is spent, right?
So yes. So for me, Catenoid, the Torus, it's just, I became, obsessed with it. And again, that spin, I love that rotation of the Torus. I love the spiral, going it, imagining it. Yes. It's just so soothing if you can just follow and kind of implode to that Planck point when you're there, when there's the stillness. So you go, and then there's this expansion. And yes, you become shareable. You're part of the wider array. And then I thought to myself, I'm about to finish. I thought to myself, you know, there are vortexes, there are toruses around our body. What if I implode in the heart? Because the heart, as Patrick mentioned, is a vortex. And heart also has golden ratio in it. So it will be like a fractal implosion, like DNA, the heart, the body. So there is this meditation in which you go to your brain, you imagine yourself as if you're standing behind your ears, behind your eyes, not ears, and you imagine yourself going down, either using stairs or lift. You go down to your heart, you stand in front of the heart, okay? And then you enter either with a vortex or door, however you want it, you enter to the heart. There's the stillness, and then you imagine yourself in the vortex, you spin, you implode, and then you stay there. And when you do that, I did that before going to bed, before sleeping. The dreams that I had, that was the next level. It was very surreal. It was just different level of dreams. The messages, the imagery, it wasn't a typical dream that we think of. So the last thing, when you implode, or when I implode actually, you open yourself to this wider array, but you never know, well, you cannot know what's there. So being on the cautious side, what I like to do is that when you implode, love your aura, love your shield. Aura is your shield, take care of it, because it will protect you from parasites, parasitic energies. And you should state your sovereignty, at least I do that. When I do specific work, being with another person, or if I'm working with another person working on me, I always state in my head, like I am a sovereign woman, I'm a sovereign man, being, human man, you can choose whichever word, but you're sovereign. So meaning that you're in charge here and nothing, you don't allow, you reject anything that can harm you from approaching and coming to you. And the last thing is that in order to be grounded in all of this, I suggest always like take shower or ground yourself. When I implode, I like to imagine myself having my feet connected to the soil and my feet being roots. So between the trees, they're holding me down, so I am grounded. I am still conscious, but I allow the subconscious to come forward and just enjoy. So yes, so this is my experience of being lucid. Thank you.
That was nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. Super nice. Anybody want to ask any questions immediately?
Oh, goodness.
Yes, I really like what you said about that there's a sort of misconception about lucid dreaming and how people talk about it as it's sort of like controlling your dreams, but rather as a form of steering and navigating. And I guess that makes sense if you think of it in terms of letting your, let's say, your higher self or your hyper coordinates, you sort of open up to your hyper vectors, so to say. It's like a pool of higher order agency or something.
Ancestor memory?
Well, yes, it's very technical words, but that makes sense. So it's not really, because the idea of having leverage is actually bouncing against the artificiality threshold, right? It must be, so that makes a lot of sense.
Leverage is, you get dense enough to steer the wave, basically.
Yeah.
And the embedding is sufficiently dense. Now you're steering the water vane, you're steering, so that as you get that embedding literally means watching the shaman steer the tornado and the bioplasmic streamers of the shaman visibly embed in the tornado, and the shaman says, I'm eating the anger. He's actually eating the pain of the tornado, and that's why the tornado falls in love with the shaman and follows him around.
So maybe let's put it this way, that any leverage that's outside of pure intention becomes artificial.
That's right. And so what does pure intention mean electrically?
The perfect fractal.
Yeah, and the best survival for all, literally pure survival memory, perfectly shareable wave, exactly. Nice.
It would be fun to actually implode in the dream, which I haven't done. But that would be great if I could be lucid in that point. Like, okay, let me just implode in the dream. I mean, that would be
Nice.
fun.
More questions, more questions, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like, we are also neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
Christ do with his
Yeah.
disciples, like, he also embedded within them.
Yeah,
And
which
they
means
followed him around, like, it was like, wasn't it?
ultimately you only fall in love with pure intention. Oh, next one, okay, yes.
There was a professor at Frankfurt University in Germany, Tolai, and he wrote a book about lucid dreaming. And he was a professor for psychology and sports. He taught his students lucid dreaming to train in sports.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
he himself was training skateboard. He was around 40, and after a year, without being much out there, just with lucid dreaming, he became a European champion. Just amazing.
That's that in the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his main technique of like checking, going into lucid, worked for me a few times. Over the day, you several times go like this, you turn around, and then you look. If things stand still, you're awake. And he claimed it's the only way to distinguish between being lucid or not. And
Spin in the dream. It's
yeah,
awesome.
and it works. And to then, the first time I had a lucid dream from the technique was in a train wagon, a sleeper wagon. So full of metal. So also that is possible.
You made your own spin. I think we're first over here. Thank you, Professor Ralph.
Thank you.
So, Hebrew and Sanskrit alphabets are locations in the Torus. Should I recite a mantra or visualize those images to allow or improve my implosion? Or is more when I close my eyes and I see things around me, is a way to know where I am in my own Torus? Should I use it like visually, training, seeing it?
Well, the classic story was the first word of Genesis, Breshith, Bet Resh. If you walk from the outside of the torus, if you want to just, so when I'm on the outside and seeing this angle, this spiral from this angle is the letter Beit. And if I walk 1/7 the way in, and again look at center, now that shadow is Resh. And after I'm done spelling Breshith and visualize one letter at a time, I have turned myself inside out on the surface of a torus, at first, in principle, the origin of thingness. Faber d'Olivet's translation. So basically, that was a way of turning inside out recursively in the beginning.
So you have a sequence that you repeat and it's going to enhance your implosion.
Literally, that was precisely the principle of implosion.
At the beginning of the talk, you mentioned shareable thoughts and how they can increase bliss. I'm curious by which mechanics that works. Is it the understanding of the thoughts being shared by other people, or is it the physical, electric, plasmatic aspect that increases this bliss?
You know, the fastest way to get children to pee is to drive by a river. They all need to pee. So the collective unconscious is literally a superfluid, of course. So the reason your hair stands up when you think a shareable thought, obviously it's imploded capacitance, but the psychology of that is the superfluid, just like all of water, doesn't want to die. So whoever has the secret to eternal spin, eternal circulation, all of the charge is attracted to them. We call that pure intention. It's literally implosive capacitance. The intelligence of the superfluid of the plasma comes to you.
Maybe last question then, we are running out of
Okay.
time.
It's not a question per se, but something you said about the dreaming of Algeria and snow. I would have similar dreams. Egypt, I would go back and it's very polluted, but then I would have lucid experiences where the river Nile is pure, the skies are blue, the trees are blooming, and I'm like, this is so real because I can feel it in my dream. And then it happened in Tunisia, even though I've never been. But
You need to dream the future for your country and teach your kids. Yes, good
Yeah,
work.
but I'm doing it from afar, so that I can survive. Yeah.
Teach the young people to dream their future. Exactly. Good work.
But some of us are that, and they don't know that they're doing that.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
And now that you know, you're more lucid. So Tufan says that we need to transition. So I suggest we take about 10 minutes break, and then we have scheduled an open Q&A. All speakers are here to answer questions. Open conversation Q&A, is that right?
Yes, and we have